Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror. I am here today. I'm starting a new collection. This is really dedicated to people that have an interest in educating themselves and also prevention involving mass shootings. I told you before that the U.S. Secret Service, they have been investigating mass shootings for years. They have provided the public with a report that we can learn from. So I'm going to start this video off by sharing a video and then I'll get into the report. So let me share my screen. This video is provided by News4Jax, the local station, and it's titled Secret Service Report Analyzes People Who Commit Mass Shootings. This video is under 3 minutes.
We're getting new insight tonight into the mindset of people who commit mass shootings. The U.S. Secret Service just released a report after analyzing more than 170 mass shooting incidents that killed at least 3 people. Researchers are hoping that this detailed information can somehow prevent deaths in the future. We're only 3 weeks into the year 2023, and already police have responded to 39 mass shootings across the country. On Monday, at least 7 people were killed in California when a 66-year-old man targeted people he came in contact with every day, shooting and killing them execution style.
All of the evidence we have points to this being the instance of workplace violence.
According to a newly released Secret Service study, more than half of the attackers were motivated by some kind of grievance and sought retaliation for perceived wrongdoings. 17% of the grievances were related to issues with a current or former relationship, and 10% were connected to the workplace.
We have unfinished business in our country to address gun violence. This workplace violence.
73% of the mass shooters used one or more firearms, according to the study, and 28% of the attackers issued some final communication, suggesting through a journal, writing, suicide note, or cryptic message that they were planning to act out violently. Another key finding in the study is an alarming 93% of attackers were experiencing a personal crisis like domestic abuse, divorce, or disciplinary actions at work. The study found 77% of their crisis incidents occurred within 1 year of the mass shooting, and 72% experienced financial hardships leading up to the murders. Most of the attackers were white males, and nearly half had a history of domestic violence, and over half of the attackers experienced a mental health breakdown prior to their attack.
We're looking at all criminal history, mental health histories, and seeing if there's any gaps that were there that we may have missed.
News4Jax spoke with a mental health expert who shared these warning signs of potential violence, including someone suddenly withdrawing from friends, excessive irritability, persistent thoughts of harming themselves or someone else, and animal cruelty. Experts say it's important not to ignore these behaviors or any direct threats made toward a place, a person, or themselves. So if you suspect an urgent threat, experts suggest that you reach out to your local law enforcement agency. In cases involving behavior that is concerning, but you don't suspect an actual attack, mental health professionals, counselors, community leaders, they are your best options, according to the experts. If you or someone you know is in emotional distress or a suicidal crisis, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK.
So today I'm here. I want to introduce you to the findings from the U.S. Secret Service. They have worked diligently following these mass shooting incidents, and they have compiled information for the public, for our education, for our betterment, so that we can make informed decisions. And I think it's important to share the information with you. So I want to show you the report. I'm going to detail some information from the U.S. Secret Service website. I'm going to share that with you. And I'm going to break this down into smaller parts because the report itself, which was published in January of 2023, it covered 5 years. But it's a large report. It's about 70 pages long, and there's no way that I can do that report any justice by trying to do one video. So what I've kind of decided to do, I'm going to have a small grouping of parts. This will be part 1, and I want to keep the videos primarily about 30 minutes long, so I'm not overwhelming you with a lot of information in one video. So this video is going to be part 1. It's going to be our introduction to the report. I want you to be able to view the report, get access to it. I have the links, of course, on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. You can go from there and open up the report and review it on your own if you like, or later. But I want you to have access to the report so you can also gain this information, okay? So I'm going to share my screen now so I can show you the report. Okay, so right now we're on the Secret Service page. Part of this page is going to talk about the data that they have reviewed, they have compiled and collected for the period of years 2016 to 2020. It's a 5-year period. They covered 173 incidents, and this report is going to detail their findings, okay? So I want to go over this information, and I'm going to read exactly what you see here. So it's on secretservice.gov. This is the United States Secret Service page. And the Secret Service research, it examines for the first time 5 years of mass violence data. Okay, this report, it was published in January of 2023, and we're going to go over it. So today, the United States Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center, NTAC, released Mass Attacks in Public Spaces 2016 through 2020, a comprehensive report examining 173 incidents of targeted violence and highlighting the observable commonalities among the attackers, right? We want to know, what did they have in common? What can we learn from these attackers, their behaviors, their mindset? What did they do leading up to the attack? Were there red flags, things that we can hone in on to recognize behavior before? Because we want to prevent these attacks from happening, right? Okay. Let's continue. The report's release coincides with a webinar presentation tailored to community leaders and stakeholders. Over 20,000 participants have registered for the event, including government officials, police, school officials, workplace security managers, mental health professionals, and faith-based leaders. The registrants represent all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and multiple countries. And these are really the stakeholders, right? These are law enforcement, police officers on the ground. We need school administrators, right? We want them to know what to do in a case of a mass shooting, right? We have workplace violence, right? So we need to know what managers can do, how they can train their staff. And then we have the mental health providers because we want to understand the mindset of these actors, right? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? What kind of stressors are they having? Is there any indication that we can see this in people before it happens, right? Also, with faith leaders, what can we do there? You know, can we get this information out? Um, can we get this into the hands of the public, right, to share? Because a lot of people gather in groups, right, for religious purposes, okay? The prevention of mass violence in America remains as critical as ever. Far too often, communities and families have been devastated by the impact of these tragedies, and public safety professionals continue to work toward preventing future attacks, said U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheeto of the report. The information revealed in this report is intended to guide those prevention efforts. NTAC's exploration of each attacker's background, motivation, and pre attack behavior will assist the Secret Service and our partners in our shared violence prevention efforts. We encourage our public safety partners to review the information within this report and apply it to their own practices for providing a safe environment in communities across the country. The analysis is intended to provide critical information to a cross sector of community organizations that have a role in preventing these types of tragedies. Among the report's key findings, let's hear what are the key findings, okay? And what I want to do before I go over the key findings, I'm going to show you where we can get the report. Everywhere is underlined here, the report here. We can click on there and the report is going to open up for us, okay? So I'll do that. And this is the report, okay? This is a report. Okay, let's hear these key findings, okay? Most of the attackers had exhibited behavior that elicited concern in family members, friends, neighbors, classmates, co-workers, and others. And in many cases, those individuals feared for the safety of themselves and others. So what they're saying is, with these attackers, they exhibited in their behavior when they were around their family, when they were at school with their friends, when they were in the neighborhood and neighbors saw them. Even if they went to work and they were around their coworkers, they exhibited behaviors. The people, they felt concerned. They felt fear. They felt threatened. They felt for their own safety, for themselves and for others. Okay. Next key, right? Many attackers had a history of physically aggressive or intimidating behaviors, evidenced by prior violent criminal arrests, charges, domestic violence, or other acts of violence toward others. So they're saying these people, you can recognize them because they may have this criminal history where they're being intimidating, they're being aggressive, they're being violent. They might have a domestic violence case, okay? There's going to be something there where they were acting out in a violent manner, okay? That's number 2. That's one of their key findings, okay? Number 3, this is another key finding from the report. Half of the attackers, they were motivated by grievances and were retaliating for perceived wrongs related to personal, domestic, or workplace issues. So they're saying that 1 out of 2, 50% of the attackers, they had a list of grievances. They wanted to retaliate for things that they perceived were wrongs done to them, whether they had been personal or if they happened at work or if they were in a relationship. They perceived that something was done wrong to them. And now they're retaliating. And I know I have found this. I can recall the shooter at Michigan State University. He had felt that he had been wronged, and he felt that he was ridiculed. And he wrote in his note, in his note that he left behind, over and over again about that feeling. Okay, let's continue. Number 4, most of the attackers used firearms, and many of those firearms were possessed illegally at the time of the attack. Okay, so this is telling us that many of these mass shooting incidents, mass attack incidents, they used a firearm, and that firearm was possessed illegally. Okay, let's go on. This is going to be number 5. 1/4 of the attackers subscribed to a belief system involving conspiracies or hateful ideologies, including anti-government, anti-Semitic, and misogynistic views. Okay, misogynistic views. So they're saying 1 out of 4, 25%, they subscribe to a belief that was either conspiracy based, hateful, or anti-government, anti-Semitic. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Many attackers experience stressful events across various life domains, including family, romantic relationships, personal issues, employment, and legal issues. In some of these cases, attackers experience a specific triggering event prior to perpetrating the attack. Now, I can really agree to this and really speak to this. Most of the attackers that I have seen and studied over the years, they were in a very stressful environment. They did have issues with relationships. They had issues with family. They had personal issues. Some of them had issues on the job. These can cause a person more stress. Some of them had deaths in the family. They may have had a pet pass away, something that triggered the event. Yeah, I can really agree to that. Okay. And this is the last key finding. Okay. Over half of the attackers experienced mental health symptoms prior to or at the time of their attacks, including depression, psychotic symptoms, and suicidal thoughts. Now, a case that I was watching over, it was a long period of time. The Ethan Crumbley case, he did have some major mental health issues, some mental health concerns. He did not receive any support from his parents to get him the help that he needed, but he did struggle in that arena. But overall, many of them do have signs where they are depressed, they're sad, they're lonely, they may be antisocial, they may spend a lot of time by themselves, they may not have friendships, they may not socialize well. Some of them have suicidal thoughts, some of them have tried to commit suicide. Okay. The report also highlights key operational implications for those tasked with violence prevention. These implications should be kept in mind while communities develop the tools, training, resources, and policies to prevent future tragedies. Everyone in the community plays a role in violence prevention, said National Threat Assessment Center Chief Dr. Lina Aladari. The latest NTAC report provides an unprecedented analysis to support our public safety partners and affirms that targeted violence is preventable if communities have the right information and resources to recognize warning signs and intervene. How many times did I say some of these mass shooters, they needed someone to collide in their world, intervene, pull them, especially the young ones, out of this dark place. They needed help. They needed to be illuminated. They needed to get someone involved in their life to care about them, to give them the resources that they desperately needed at that time when they were going through the difficulties, the challenges. Some of them really had major issues, including bullying, isolation, depression. Some dealt with financial stressors. Some had family members that lost their employment. Some had parents that were not together, so they're going through a separation or divorce. All of these have an impact on the younger mass shooters, more specifically, is what I'm talking about. Okay. The Secret Service will continue to build on our threat assessment methodology and provide research findings and guidance to public and private sectors to enhance the prevention efforts of those charged with safeguarding our communities. Okay. So I already showed you, this is the cover page for the report. I do want to play one more short video, okay? And then we will just detail a little bit information about the report before we start it, okay? So let me go to this short video. So this video is by CBS News. It's titled Secret Service on Preventing Mass Shootings. It's a little bit over 2 minutes, but you will see the importance of why I'm showing you this video, because they're going to refer to the report. And this report is really important. And they're going to talk about really how can we develop tools to prevent the mass shootings. They're going to talk with these two people who have a lot of experience with mass shootings and the Secret Service. So let me share my screen and enlarge it. Okay.
The best thing is to prevent a mass shooting. And the United States Secret Service has spent years studying assassins and school shooters in order to do just that. Brian Voskuil and Robert Fine wrote 2 studies for the Secret Service, and they told us in an interview for 60 Minutes that gunmen often leave a lot of clues about their intentions.
A strong key to prevention is to encourage those with information to come forward and to report it. And in almost every instance that we looked at, there were such people that along the pathway that the attacker traveled, people became aware of some of the behavior that included acquisition of a weapon or planning or surveillance. And they also became aware that the person was acting in a manner that would cause concern, that he was distressed about something.
People who engaged in these attacks took a series of actions, as in often selecting a particular weapon, sometimes practicing with a weapon. They thought, I'm desperate. They accepted the idea that violence might be an acceptable way to solve their problems.
How many school shootings did you study?
37.
In how many cases did the shooter tell someone essentially what he was planning on doing before he did it?
In almost all of them, the student who communicated his intent to commit the attack.
The people who were told that something was going to happen, what did they do with the information?
Most often, they did not come forward and tell somebody.
Why not?
Some of them may have said that they thought that they might be getting the person in trouble by coming forward, and that he really wasn't serious. And in some, perhaps, they were afraid that if they brought this to the attention of an adult or a school official, that they would in effect ruin the life of the person that they were reporting.
Okay, so I do want to close this. Okay, so I wanted you to hear their words from their perspective, because they have the experience, they have the knowledge. Okay, I do want to go back and kind of lay out, before we wrap up this part one, I want to go over the report, because we're going to go through this report and discuss all of the topics. Okay, so in the table of contents, it's going to discuss kind of the various topics that they're going to detail. So let me give you a couple of examples: timing, locations, targeting and harm cause, resolutions, motives, planning, weapons, additional items brought for the attack. They have information that they've compiled about the demographics, employment, the criminal behavior, mental health, social isolation, bullying and harassing others, behavioral changes. They have a detailed list. This is a great report for us to go through to lay the foundation for prevention. We need to find ways to stop these mass shootings in the United States. It has become very commonplace here, and we need to do something about it. And this is why I'm starting this collection. And again, this is going to take a while to go through. This is 70 pages of information, but it's worth the time. It's worth the effort to share this experience in a way that details all of the concerns that one may have, questions for relating to mass shootings. So the last thing I want to do, I want to go over the executive summary, and then I will wrap this up, okay? So I'm going to go down to the executive summary. Let me see. Okay. Okay. This is the executive summary, and I want to read it because I want to go through this information, and it's going to lead us up into the parts, okay? So behavioral threat assessment is a proactive approach pioneered by the U.S. Secret Service to prevent acts of targeted violence, including mass violence in communities across the United States. This report builds upon a 25-year history of targeted violence research from the U.S. Secret Service's National Threat Assessment Center, NTAC, and demonstrates how mass attackers display a range of observable, concerning behaviors across a variety of community systems as they escalate toward violence. In short, NTAC's examination of the attacks contained in this report indicates that targeted violence is preventable, When communities are equipped with the appropriate tools, training, and resources to intervene before violence occurs. Behavioral threat assessment programs are critical components of these community violence prevention efforts. These programs are not designed to predict who will become violent, but rather to identify, assess, and intervene with individuals who display threatening or other concerning behaviors that indicate they may pose a risk of harm to themselves or others. As law enforcement agencies, workplaces, and other community organizations implement behavioral threat assessment programs, the approach should be guided by the research findings contained in this report. When conducted properly, a behavioral threat assessment will involve promoting bystander reporting to identify warning signs of potential violence, systematically gathering information about the circumstances and behaviors of concern, assessing the possibility of violence as an outcome, and implementing preventive management strategies to make positive and safe outcomes more likely. The 173 attacks contained in this report impacted a variety of locations, including businesses, workplaces, schools, houses of worship, military bases, nonprofit service providers, residential complexes, public transportation, and open spaces. In many cases, the attacker had a known affiliation with the site of the attack. The analysis is intended to provide critical information to a cross sector of community organizations that have a role in preventing these types of tragedies. Key findings include, most of the attackers had exhibited behavior that elicited concerns in family members, friends, neighbors, classmates, co-workers, and others. And in many cases, those individuals fear for their safety of themselves or others. Number two, many attackers had a history of physically aggressive or intimidating behaviors, evidenced by prior violent criminal arrests, charges, domestic violence, or other acts of violence toward others. Number three, half of the attackers were motivated by grievances and were retaliating for perceived wrongs related to personal, domestic, or workplace issues. Number four, most of the attackers used firearms, and many of those firearms were possessed illegally at the time of the attack. Number five, 1/4 of the attackers subscribed to a belief system involving conspiracies or hateful ideologies, including anti-government, anti-Semitic, and misogynistic views. Number six, many attackers experienced stressful events across various life domains, including family, romantic relationships, personal issues, employment, and legal issues. In some of these cases, attackers experience a specific triggering event prior to perpetrating the attack. Number seven, over half of the attackers experienced mental health symptoms prior to or at the time of their attacks, including depression, psychotic symptoms, and suicidal thoughts. Okay. Now, I'm going to wrap up this video. We're going to pick right up with the key implications And we're going to start there for our part 2. And then we're going to go into the various categories, right? We'll probably start with the section overview of the attacks and start with timing, okay? We will see where it takes us in our next video, okay? So I really want to encourage you to stick it in with me. I know it's a lot of words. I know it's a lot. I'm going to try to have maybe 1 to 2 videos in each part to take away from all of the reading, but it is a lot of reading. It's a lot of research behind this, but it's valuable information that we can learn from. So I will try to have about 2 videos for each part to break up all of the reading, but you can't get around the reading. But that's why I'm going to keep these videos about 30 minutes long, so that when we do focus on the area, it won't be for an hour or 2 hours. It will just be for about 30 minutes. So again, we're going to pick up with the key implications, and then we'll go on from there and see where we land. So that will be in our next video, part 2. So please remember to stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy. I want you to be well, all my friends. Take care of yourself. Please share this valuable, very important information about the mass public violent acts, okay? This is information that people can learn from. It's very valuable to try to prevent, to keep ourselves, our friends, our loved ones, our co-workers, our kids safe. It's very important that we share videos like this, okay? Hopefully I will see you in part 2 very soon. Take care. Be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody.